the most anticipated earnings releases for the week of February 17, 2025. Presented by earningswhispers. It is another week with over 400 companies with analyst coverage set to report in the U.S. Nearly half of those are Russell 2000 stocks, compared to only 44 among the S&P 500. By count, most will be among technology, financials, and materials sectors, but by market cap, this week will be dominated by the retailers. The political environment in the U.S. is so polarized that, despite the market being closed to honor the nation's presidents, there are a couple of handful of names that will report results in the evening on Monday. Just kidding, of course. Transocean tops the list of those reporting on Monday, and estimates have come down where it is more likely that the company will beat, but it isn't likely to change the downward trends for the company. The earnings whisper number is below the consensus estimate for UFP Industries, but it also has a low bar that is beatable even though earnings peaked in 2022 after lagging massive lumber price increases in 2021 and early 2022, and those estimates have been trending lower since. There will be nearly 100 companies report on Tuesday, with Arista Networks getting most of investors' attention. The stock gapped above $120 following news of the Stargate projects, and then reversed that move following the release of DeepSeek. So far, it appears that all the positive trends remain intact, but that 120 level is solid resistance until shown otherwise. It isn't a coincidence that when Arista Networks sold off, Baidu rallied. China has been trying to stimulate without much success, but the DeepSeek brought new light on the Chinese AI names. That isn't likely to show up in the company's earnings. But if this move has legs, there are plenty of people on the wrong side of this trade, even though sentiment has improved significantly from a multi-year low. There are about 130 companies scheduled to report on Wednesday, with most of the interest in Carvana, which happens to be breaking out to new highs following solid results from the brick-and-mortar auto retailers. Before Carvana reports, we'll get results from Etsy that morning. That is already a surprise, because it is the first time since the company's IPO that it didn't wait for the market to close to report results. That's not the only thing different about the company this quarter. Even though we are unlikely to see the strength the company had following the pandemic, and it doesn't appear that the company blew the doors off during the fourth quarter, it does seem that it is going to report positive year-over-year earnings growth for the first time in a year, and that isn't exactly bearish regardless of how bearish the investors are going into the news. Thursday is the busiest day of the week, with roughly 175 companies scheduled to report. While there is a renewed interest in the Chinese AI names, Alibaba appears to be the early winner, and the stock has rallied significantly going into earnings. After Alibaba and its peers were crushed in 2021, and even in 2022, the stock went sideways for 2 years. This move has the makings of a continued move higher, so unless the company tells us something different, weakness after earnings should likely be bought. Not long after we get results from Alibaba Thursday morning, Walmart will report. Walmart is the largest retailer in the U.S. Between Amazon and Walmart, the two have more than 10% of total retail sales. Amazon has made attempts to grow outside of its online marketplace, without a lot of success. On the other hand, Walmart is having great success growing online sales, and when you combine that with improving efficiencies and margins, it explains Walmart's strong outperformance in 2024 to double from its breakout above $50. During the largest quarter for retailers, checks appear to suggest Walmart had another outperformance. There is one problem, though. Everyone already knows it. Things slow down on Friday, and neither of the two at the top of investors' focus, Hawaiian Electric Industries and Arbor Realty Trust, have much insight. But it is worth noting that sentiment in Arbor Realty Trust is quite low, and over the past 20 years, you were better off buying the stock when sentiment was low. As you might suspect, with mostly small-cap companies reporting this week, there are sure to be big moves, and here is the list of the biggest. We are highlighting SolarEdge this week, but primarily because, like Etsy, SolarEdge is going to have a pre-open earnings release for the first time in its history. You don't want to read too much into it, but also when something changes, you take note. In this case, we haven't exactly seen strength for the solar names, but we have seen evidence that things have stopped getting worse, and consider sentiment is low, and short interest is at an all-time high. That is likely good enough. A move above 1750 would potentially give the technical signal. As we said last week, the calendar for March will fill out some, and we are seeing the white space fill for the first half of the month as we move out into the calendar. Meanwhile, FedEx shows up during the third week.
Shh.